Hello everyone, I'm Benny the Storyteller, and today I have a question for you. What would you give to save a loved one? What if you thought you were the cause for that person needing to be saved in the first place? Now ask yourself the first question again. These situations are not always easy to answer or figure out. But this is what today's story is about, as we embark on the thrilling finale for the Ballad of Moose and Arya. Before we jump into the action, if you haven't already listened to parts 1 or 2, you can do so here. Now, on to the story. It saddened Moose deeply to do what must be done, but he would mourn later. For now, he finished the incantation and a glowing warmth spread from himself to his remaining party, fortifying the shieldless fighter and stalwart sorcerer, who braced for the oncoming attack from the now twisted and mutated giant spider-like form of Arya. As darkened waves of energy emanating from her pulsating abdomen, bearing down on the trio to break their spirit. Moose already knew this was an effect of the ancient relic buried within Arya, and his counterspell was doing what it needed to for the others. She bellowed in anger at this unexpected hurdle. Seeing an opportunity, the sorcerer cast an icy blast at the wet earth beneath the horrendous spider, entrapping and freezing her spear-like legs in place. Arya screamed once again in frustration, and as yellow spittle shot forth, the fighter then dashed in her direction, sliding underneath the massive beast, swinging his sword in the process and shattering 3 of Arya's legs. Now, being a rather proud Goliath, the fighter turned triumphantly to offer a thumbs up for his party members. But that was a grave mistake. Arya possessed a rather unique amount of regeneration, and within that time frame her spindly legs had mostly regrown, and with one still frozen to the ground, she used it as leverage to toss her weight and pierce the fighter with a powerful stab. Looking down, the Goliath now saw a huge pointy appendage protruding from his abdomen as he was lifted from the ground. Damning the loss of his shield, but being rather stalwart himself, he wouldn't go down without a fight. As the sorcerer rained down swaths of hardened icicles upon Arya, he could still feel a warmth burning within him, and harnessed what remaining strength was left to swing his great sword in a wild arc. It struck Arya just below her midsection, almost separating in two her human-like form and the body of a spider. With the mucousy liquid pouring from the wound, she was screaming to the heavens. The fighter was dropped to the ground, lifeless. Seizing yet another opportunity, the sorcerer showered Arya with a freezing gust of wind and snow, halting her reattachment and slowing the regrowth. Rolling with the spontaneous plan, Moose sent out a scorching ray in the exact same spot, and the 2 of them were able to completely sever Arya. The arachnid abdomen quickly dried to a husk as all manner of blood and pus oozed from what remained of Arya's humanish upper torso. But the dark energy was still radiating. "I hate you," spat from her unhinged mouth. Bones began to snap at an alarming rate, and 2 long, twisted legs shot out from her wound, forming a complete body once again. Now before them stood a 9-foot-tall, hunched, gruesome being. Her wild, matted hair covered bits of her protruding ribcage, and before they knew what they were looking at, she lunged at the sorcerer. Her long, gnarled, and bony hands seized upon his neck and tore it from his shoulders. "I hate you," she growled. Tossing the head aside, she turned on Moose and sprang for the attack. Frantically backpedaling, he dropped his maul and quickly clutched the medallion around his neck and cast a defensive ward. Arya met the spell with force, raking, stabbing, and yelling. With what little time he had, Moose began a chant, while the spell of light that kept Arya at bay began to weaken under her rabid thrashing. As an inner fire grew within his clenched fist, the magical shield dissipated, and with it, an explosive fiery wave of devastation erupted, engulfing the rage-filled Arya. Blocking his vision from the forceful light, Moose blinked as it waned with a sickening thud of flesh hitting the earth. Arya's limbs were completely obliterated by the fire. What remained of her torso and head convulsed on the scorched ground. With her regeneration slowed to a crawl, Moose got to his feet, retrieved his heavy maul, and limped over to stand above what used to be his beloved. Raising the anvil-headed great hammer, he would bring it down to destroy the monstrosity once and for all. But before doing so, he chanced one last look into its eyes, and regretted it immediately. Because they were her eyes. Not a monster, not blank, not hating, but his wife's. He was crushed for a final time. And within that moment everything slowed, his memories flashing brightly before his own eyes. Of a chance meeting, not expecting to find love, but finding it nonetheless. Of long walks hand in hand talking about their future. Her genuine, infectious laughter. Experiencing first times together, sharing quiet moments. And the feeling of her body on his chest when they embrace. Coming to, he dropped his weapon and fell upon her, wrapping his arms tightly so his warm, beating heart could be felt through her now cold skin. The dark, pulsing energy tried to push back against his strengthening resolve to no avail. So, the relic within forced its remaining power to regrow the body. Its fresh limbs began to bury themselves in Moose's back over and over again, yelling obscenities from a writhing death roll as his blood covered the two of them. Moose held on tighter, and his heart pulsed heavier and heavier, sending out shockwaves of warming sorrow and love that finally touched the darkness within Arya, fracturing the ancient relic as his vision darkened. Another bright, flashing light shot out from their entangled bodies, and a silence cut through the battle. The dark hatred was defeated, and the Neverlight Swamp receded. But what of Moose and Arya? Well, I wish I could say for certain what became of those two, but alas, there is no accounting for their whereabouts, if they are about at all. Some say they're out there living happily, while others think the relic took them both and disappeared. Personally, I like to think they met each other once again within that bright light, lovingly hand in hand moving on to what awaits us all. What I do know for certain is that Moose's warhammer still stands on that very spot he dropped it, and travelers come from all over the realm to pay their respects. But if you are out there, Moose and Arya, please, pay a visit to us from time to time here at the Gathering Stone. That's it for this week, folks. I do hope you enjoyed this conclusion to the Ballad of Arya, but be sure to come back next week for another thrilling tale of the lost. And don't forget to check out the wares over at our merchant shop. The portal will be in the description. Farewell for now.